effective collaboration between library directors and Friends Group. He is the treasurer of the Friends of the Cascade Branch of Kent District Library and a retired human resources executive. So she brings that perspective of groups within an organization trying to work together peacefully and productively. Sue Johnson, you all know Sue. She's the president of the Friends Novi Library and treasurer and past president of the Friends Michigan Library. So she's kind of got her Friends Group hat on for this discussion. Maria McCarville, also on our board of directors, is a director of the Warren Public Library. So she's got her director hat on. And then Claire Membiela, she's a library law consultant for the Library of Michigan and an advisor to the Friends Group. Anybody want to start off here in the panel?
I will.
All right, Sue, go ahead.
My library director is here today. Last meeting, my friend's coordinator, who works for the library, was at this meeting. That I know all of you would think if your library director and your library friends coordinator, if your library thought enough of the Friends Group to send them, paid for their day of work, to a meeting like this so that they could engage with myself and other Friends Groups and enjoy that experience and learn from it. That's a statement of support between and a strong relationship between the library and the Friends.
Okay. Anybody else want to address that on the panel? Claire?
So when I talk to Friends Groups and libraries in context of Friends Groups, when I talk to Friends Groups, it can be about a lot of different things. But a lot of times when I talk to libraries in the context of Friends Groups, it's because there's an issue. And so what I see is, so what you want to have is a good relationship, right? And to build relationships, you need trust. To have trust, I think there needs to be knowledge, there needs to be interaction, and there needs to be communication of expectations. And that's why you're going to hear about this in a minute, but I'm a very big advocate of the agreements between the library and the Friends Group. Some Friends Groups have told me they look at that as an insult. But I think it's not an insult. What it is it's just business. It's here's our expectations, here's your expectations. So now we get all that messy stuff out of the way, and we all understand we're on the same page, and now we can work together. Because libraries, particularly in Michigan, are very complex from a lot of different angles, particularly legal angle, and Friends Groups are different from libraries from a legal perspective and can also be complex. So it's important that each party understands what they are and you know where their boundaries are, but also understands that about the other party. So I think communication and education are integral to get that trust that then enables you to have a good relationship.
I think piggybacking on your comments there, I think what has made our relationship, I think, wonderfully successful is the common goal set. Because I think where we've had issues decades past, it was a lack of, I think, real good communication or understanding of what the director wants to accomplish and what the Friends might want to accomplish. And obviously those should not be independent of each other. The Friends Group is there to support the director. And it's helpful if you can have obviously not just cooperation, but a certain amount of positive energy towards reaching those goals. So I think that being able to come to an agreement, an enthusiastic agreement about what your goals are, makes it just all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I agree. You know, part of it having the shared goals, but even just kind of communicating them with each other so we're all, you know, kind of on the, you know, same page. And the same thing with, you know, kind of thinking about and talking about, you know, planning in the future and, you know, how to work together. You know, that's important.
Could I just ask how many of you have a memorandum of understanding in place? But I think that, as Claire pointed out, it is a critical building block to making sure everybody's going in the same direction. Yes.
How often should they be signed? Is that like an annual agreement?
You mean updated?
Yeah, or updated?
It depends on the agreement. It doesn't there's nothing that says it has to be ever redone, but just from a best practices standpoint, I would say it probably should be revisited every time there's significant turnover on either the library board or the Friends board. Because it's important to note that the contract is between the library board and the Friends. The Friends should have a very good relationship, not just with the director, but also with the board. Over time, laws change, the library evolves. You know, if you're a township library and you do an agreement and then you become a district, well, that agreement has to change in order to realign itself with the new goals. Or it could be the Friends get a big endowment, or the library gets a big endowment, and so now the funding or the fundraising can change. So whenever there's some kind of big event like that, I would strongly recommend that it gets reviewed so that each party can look at, you know, maybe we'd actually like to tweak this, and the library can say, you know, maybe this would work better for us. You know, the best preparation for any problem is documentation, is an agreement. Even no matter how well you get along with the library, it protects both of you, and the same goes for policies. We have a saying in my office, which is, it's not a problem until it's a problem. So this year, more than any, I've had calls where libraries have been, well, this has never happened. Well, yeah. So hindsight's 20/20, right? So you can say, oh, I wish we had a policy, or we're gonna put a policy in place right now, but that's not gonna cover the event that's already occurred, right? And the same is true of policies. Gift policy. If you don't have a gift policy, I would strongly recommend it, so that if you do get large donations, they're particularly useful with large donations, but they're useful with any donation. It allows, a gift policy will allow you to say, these are the kinds of things we're not gonna take. And then two, the director and the staff also. You know, the library should also have a gift policy, because sometimes they're given directly to them. The other side of it is reporting. Depending on if you're a 501c3 or not, depending on what kind of 501c3 you are, depending on how much money you fundraise, there may be varying levels of reporting that you may have to do for varying entities, including either the state and the federal government. If your library is making all the decisions on where your money goes, there may be a problem with some of your reporting, because ultimately your board is responsible for accounting for that money. You should have that, but yeah, every Friends group should have its own D&O insurance
Yes.
and its own liability
Yes.
insurance.
Yes.
Not rely on the library for
Because you're
that.
not covered it.
And you know, the thing, it's all about what ifs. And you know, you could have a ton of hypotheticals that sound really scary but never happen. But again, it's only a problem if it's a problem. So, you know, you have, you know, someone go into the bookstore for the Friends with someone in there who works for the Friends, not for the library, and there's an unfortunate situation there. It could be a disability claim, it could be a tort, it could be discrimination. Well, the library doesn't have liability for the Friends group member who is there. That would be on the Friends group. Now, there are, as part of the Nonprofit Corporation Act, there are provisions that say that you can, you know, have that the corporation assumes all liability, or, you know, depending on how your corporation is set up, there are varying levels of liability for a situation like that. But it's still possible. So you could still end up with liability, and the library is not going to cover you for things like that.
The library still will have some responsibility if something happens on their property. It may not be to protect you, though. It may be to protect themselves. Okay, so you need to make sure that you are protected. And also, when everybody asks me this question, is do you know how much it costs to defend yourself in a case if you get taken to court? Okay, it doesn't matter if there's any basis or substance to the lawsuit. You're still going to have to defend yourself. And in this society that we live in right now, with the libraries and the crosshairs, you want to make sure that you got yourself protected against that. And as you said, you know, trying to recruit people to your board, if they're at all attentive or concerned about their own personal finances and situation and security, they're gonna think twice if they don't have the proper protection. So,
I wanted to mention that there is an organization, and that's why I was looking it up here so that I can make sure I had the right name, called Michigan Community Resources. Their sole purpose as a nonprofit is to provide legal assistance to nonprofits. Cause we had talked to them about possibly working with libraries, and that's a little bit outside the scope of what they typically do. They don't really have the kind of knowledge of like library law, but they are squarely within the realm of nonprofits. So corporate, nonprofit, corporation law. So if you're doing them already, I mean, that's something to talk to the insurance company about too. If having background checks is gonna significantly lower your, part of your insurance, it may be worth it, it may not be worth it. The iChat program through the Michigan State Corrections site is a good, it's not comprehensive, but it is good for especially a first start. But again, you could question really how much you need it and who really should have one.
Talking
Yes.
about iChat, I believe is the state police.
Yes.
And I think if you have a 501c3, there's a way of going through the process to look up people,
Yes.
In there. And I believe Otis is just if you've been like through the prison or,
Right. Yes.
something.
Yes.
So it's not gonna catch, everybody unless it was at that
Right.
level.
Right.
It gets back to communication, right? I mean, if you feel, if I feel from my side that our agreement has been violated, then the first thing to do is use inquiry, right? Meet with the person that you think, or the parties that you think have violated it, and ask what their thinking was on whatever they did, and you explain from your side what your thinking is in terms of what should have been done, and come to an understanding.
In Saginaw 2 years ago, when we passed our millage, with tremendous support from our friends group. And one thing that it was kind of important for all of us, we had our yes committee, but was to celebrate the wins. When something good, make a big effort, as much as possible to really celebrate and feel good about that, and not just, have the win or the success and then move on, to the next thing.
this has been terrific. I appreciate the panelists. Thank you for